This is Lee with 82 Game of 12 here on Sons of Liberty 75. And we have a regular length video here over Growing Empire First Victories, Wellington versus Napoleon. And I've been doing some short videos, and it's really hard to show very much when you're doing those short videos because the longest they can last is 3 minutes. So I've got quite a few assaults here to take care of to finish up the French turn. And so I've already completed a few assaults. If you look back at the last short video that I did, we had, if I get this thing to move the way I want it to move here, we had some assaults right over here with this unit here. Vimeiro leading the charge with the infantry there. And they were able to force a unit back, this unit here. And so that's where we were at there. Now, if we move a little bit over to this side, we have several assaults here. We've got 2 here, and then if we look over here, we've got this one here and this one here. So a total of 4 assaults that we need to take care of. And so we're going to take a look at this one first, and we'll just go down the line, except when we get to here, I think I may do this one before I do this one. This unit here, of course, is going to have to retreat. It's a company size unit in skirmisher in day in by day, so they're going to have to retreat prior to combat. We could have the same thing happen here. If we wanted to assault here to here, we could force this guy back. But we want to assault this stack here that's got a leader and some British units in line there. So that's where we're going to go first. So we're going to close up here. Maybe even get a little closer. Let's see. There we go. All right. So let's mark the units here. So it's going to be this unit right here, and this unit here. And the assault, I should have used. It wasn't adjacent, so maybe that's the one I was supposed to use. So they weren't adjacent. They are disordered, though. And they have a skirmisher. All right, so the first thing we have to do with the assault is, of course, the assaulting units. We have to do the attacker morale check. So let's take a look at that. So they are disordered. They do have a skirmisher. Okay. They got a morale of 39, but they're disordered, so that's going to be a -5 to the die roll. And then let's see if we've got any other modifiers here. I don't think we're going to. Okay, so we're going to have a -5. I rolled a 40, so that means they're going to fail. So that means they're going to become shaken and have to pull back 1. So they will go back, and they're shaken, so that ends that that assault. Get this on there. Okay, so let's move over here to this one. Now this unit here is getting attacked into its flank, but let's see here. Okay, so what we've got is no modifiers for this unit. Oh, I rolled a 3. That ain't good. So, wow. They become disordered. Get a disordered marker. That's something that I wish they would have included, is more markers for being disordered, shaken. There's one. I've run out. And, you know, these are pretty important markers for these units. So they are now disordered. And let's see. Okay, so they're not forced to retreat, but they are disordered. Okay, so now we do the defender morale check. Okay, and let's move their skirmisher here. They have a 36. And let's take a look at assault defender morale. Let's see, assaulted from the flank, that's going to be -20. Okay, defender has skirmisher. Let's see. No, they don't get that because it's not through their front. Okay, so they're going to have -20 to their die roll. I rolled a 72, becomes a 52. So they pass. Okay. Now we've removed the skirmishers from both sides. Okay. We have defensive fire, but they can only fire through their front. So they're not able to fire. So now we're going to go to offensive fire. And so they're going to have a offensive fire strength of 1 since they're in column. And we have to check the other modifiers, which is through their flank is +2, so now we're at 3. But we are disordered, so that's going to be -1 to their fire strength. So now we're just at 2. So we got a strength of 2. And rolled a 19 is going to be no effect. So All right, so now they become disordered if they weren't already disordered. So they were already disordered. Now we have to find, there's one. So the British unit becomes disordered. But just a second. I think they have to they lose two. Well, no, that would only be if they got hit and failed a morale check. They would lose 2 steps. Okay. All right, so they just become disordered. They're disordered, and we remove this, and then we move on down the line, which is over here now. Okay. So I think we attack this unit. It has to retreat. So, and when they do that, they either have to retreat into a hex that has friendly units, or they have to retreat 2 to 3 hexes. So I don't want to disorder these guys. This unit's going to be disordered. So we're going to move him back 2 hexes, and he becomes disordered. Now, do I have any more disordered markers? See, this is where you've got all of these other markers. And that's what happens when you've got 3 different rule sets. You've got one, the complicated rule set is taking up all these counters. So you don't have room for the counters that you need. How can you? That's one of the pet peeves I have with this. Is if you're gonna have these, the same thing with a lot of other games. They don't give you enough stinking counters. Information counters. Why do that? Why make the player have to substitute something else? Because you just didn't give enough counters for them to fight the battle. I can't mark. Okay, now I don't have any other markers for shaken or disordered. Blue or pink. Let me tell you that I don't like that. I've come across that with other games, and it's frustrating. You're the designer. Give enough counters. If you want to have like this third rule set, this complicated, sell it separate and make some extra money off of people that want that, and allow the counters that you need to play the game. How did they go through and do play testing and have enough counters playing this larger fight? Okay, now probably didn't need it in the other little small battle, Relecia, but for Vimeiro, you need it. You're going to need those counters because you got so many more units on the map, and I don't have. So now I've got to go dig around in my own stuff to find something that I can use. Okay. I think it's the great battles of history that you end up with the same problem. Why? You know they didn't do enough play testing, because they would have brought that up and said, "Hey, we got to have more counters. You're not providing enough counters for us to play the game." You know, if they didn't do enough play testing to figure that out, then they didn't take play test enough, in my opinion. And how much do you spend for this game? Big bucks. That's what. You know, that's another thing that irks me is, I spent all this money and now I don't have the counters. You people may think, oh, that's not a big deal. Yeah, it is a big deal. When you're having to throw out this money, they're expensive. And it's just cardboard. It's just paper. Way too expensive, in my opinion. And I don't need 3 rule sets. I don't need that complicated rule set. I wish they would have given you a choice that, hey, you didn't have to have that in there. Okay. I've looked at that thing. That thing is too much. Too overcomplicated, in my opinion. So I'm just saying how I feel. This is my video, so I'm going to say whatever I want. Because I don't get anything from these people. They get my money. I should be able to get a game that's got enough counters to play the game. And it's not just this game. It's not just Lock and Load. It's pretty much every one of these companies. They don't provide you enough counters, information counters. I don't know how many times in Great Battles history I've had to go dig into another game to have enough counters. Same thing with Clash of Arms, and you're fighting La Bataille. Okay, you run across where you don't have enough counters. If you watch my Talavera comparison, run out of counters. So it's like it's not new, and it's like, I don't know why there's not enough gamers pitching a big enough fit about it that the next games they come out with, they give you the counters you need. If you don't come across this, you're not playing the game. How can you play this, okay, without coming across the fact that, oh, I can't put any more disorder markers down. So I'm going to have to use these stinking colored stuff. I guess green's going to be disordered. So he's disordered. And then I gotta make note of that. What color's what? It just irks me. And it ought to irk you too. You ought to be sending a message to the company, to the designer, saying, hey, where's the counters? I got all these other counters that are useless to me because I'm not ever playing that what do they call it? Let me find out let's see, what is it called? If you're taking a look at that, the brigade game. I took a look at the all of the maneuvering and all of that. How many people are going to play that? Let them buy that separate. And then now, guess what? They're coming out with whole nother, in the new one. Wellington versus Messina. Where now you can play like an operational. Why? Who wants that? If I want operational, I go play Kevin Zucker's. I don't need, this is a tactical. I want the tactical. I don't want the operation. It's not going to match up the way that they think it is. You're going to be playing it, and it's not going to match up with the map. You're going to have to be forced to go to the map, now you're just back to tactical. It's like it's worthless. Except, hey, you're going to have to pay for it, even though you don't want it. Make that separate. People that want it, then they can buy it. But the whole thing is to make the game more expensive so that you have to spend more money, whether you want it or not. And I don't want it. So, I don't know why. There ought to be other people. You know, if you're a gamer and you're playing these games and you're playing them out, you're going to come across this issue and it's going to make you like, hey, what? I'm going to have to find something else now. Now you got all this other stuff on the board that you got to try to remember. Okay, the green disc, okay, those are disordered. But also the ones that are the regular ones. This stuff is cardboard. Make enough counters. And they were like, well, you can only have so many. I've heard them complain about that. Well, when they're designed, well, I'm only allowed so many counters. Why? You know, make the game a little cheaper and put some more counters in there. Quit trying to just rob us blind over a game and you don't even have enough counters to play the game. You know, that's criminal, I think, in my opinion. And I don't care what the designer thinks or what the company thinks. I don't give a shit. Okay? I don't get anything. They're not giving me any money. I'm paying them. And here I'm making these videos, and guess what? People are going to watch my videos and go, what are they going to do? They're going to want to go buy the game. Okay? But I'm letting you know, there's not enough counters in this game, and they give you this bullshit, brigade game that you don't even want to mess with. You know, that's miniature shit. I don't play miniatures. Okay? I don't understand why they had to have 3 different rule sets. Okay? Oh, that's great. I love it. No, you don't. I'm not ever playing the brigade. I looked at it. And it was like, you know, that's too in depth. You know? But I had to pay for it. It came with the game, so I had to pay for it. And everybody else that paid for it, and guess what? There ain't going to be that many people play that. I have not seen one video of anybody playing the brigade. Not one. And I don't even see videos. I don't see any videos of this being played. You know, most of the time it's just like the shorts I do, you know, that I don't like. I don't like doing those shorts. 3 minutes of, you know, you got to cram all this information in 3 minutes. You know, I don't get paid for any of this. I don't get 1 cent from anybody. These game companies aren't sending me free games. They're not. I don't get anything. So, you know what? I'm going to give my honest opinion. And my honest opinion is, give me the counters I need to finish at the game, to be able to play it out instead of having to use my own stuff. If you don't like me griping and complaining, don't watch my videos. You're not paying me anything. I'm not asking for you to buy me a cup of coffee or that other bullshit. And I don't make these games out for kids. It's irritating when you're trying to play a game and you don't have the counters. I ran it and raved over Decision Games Midway Solitaire, because that game is skewed because they don't provide the counters, okay, of airplanes. They combined 2 types of planes that the Japanese had into 1 counter. You can't do that. Not when you don't do it with the United States Navy. You know, you kept their 3 types of planes separate. But with the Japs, you know, or it was the Americans, I don't know which one or the other, they combined. And it's like, when you do that, I think it was the Japs. They did that. That meant that there was less planes actually in the air that the Japanese could use to attack. So I quickly sold that after I made a video about it and told people about what was going on. And the whole idea of them, the whole thinking behind it is all a bunch of just bull. Okay? Because I've played, I think every game out there that had to do with Midway, I played it. And I've read book after book. So, you know, I'm not some amateur. Okay? I was a history teacher. I got a history degree from a college. You know, I've read countless books over the Battle of Midway. And when I took a look at that and started looking at the counters and trying to figure out what were missing planes, you know? So if you're missing planes, it's not a historical accurate game. And Decision Games is not a company that you're going to go to if you want a historical accurate game. Trust me. And most of the time, their rules, you can't tell what from what. So I rarely buy their games. And when I do, I usually get rid of them mighty quick because they're just, the rules are a mess always. So back to this, where I'm having to now use my own disc, my little colored disc, to mark, pretty much everything, I guess. And the thing is, I don't have enough of these discs. Okay, so then I'm going to be looking for something else instead of playing the game. So there that is. Okay, so that skirmisher had to retreat. They become disordered. Okay, which now means this unit is going to move in here, and as they move in there, they can actually change their facing. Okay, now this skirmisher can fire on them. Okay, because they're leaving this area here, which the skirmisher has range to, and they're moving into here. So the skirmisher is firing. Has a strength of 1. They're in column. So that's going to be +1. Now, do they have a skirmisher with them? If they do, then that's going to subtract something. Yes. So that's a -1. Okay, so we're back to 1 now. So let's roll to see if they get anything. A 54 is no effect. Okay. So now they're going to move in, and I believe we're going to be able to have a follow-on assault, but they're going to be disordered. And again, well, I do have one. How about that? I guess I pulled one off of somebody. So I've got a disorder here for this unit here. So they move into that hex. Of course, like I said, they can change their formation, their facing. So they turn. And now they're going to do a follow-on charge against these guys here. So we've got this unit here against this unit here. And so they're assaulting. All right. So now we go back to the top of the assault procedure. Okay. Empty target hex? Nope. Retreat before combat? No. Advance into empty target hex? No. Attacker morale check. So now we're going to check the morale of this attacker. Okay. We've got a skirmisher. But they're going to have a -5 to the die roll. I rolled an 84, so they're going to pass. So they're going to have well-directed fire. All right, so now we go to the British. It's just a pain. All right, so they've got a morale of 34. And we've got to check to see if we're going to have any die roll modifiers. So they're going to have a +10 because they do have a skirmisher. So it's going to be a +10. '83, they passed. All right, so both of them passed. So now we have to remove the skirmishers. Okay. This unit is still disordered. All right, so now we have defensive fire. Okay, so their fire strength is 4. That's that number right here in the white box. Okay. So they start out with 4. Okay. They have well-directed fire. That's +2. So now we're at 6. The target is in column. That's a +1. So now we're at 7. Oh, he rolled an 11. Dang. Okay. So that's just going to be a morale check. So he's at 42, but we've got a -5 to the die. Rolled a 65, so he did pass. Okay, so now they get offensive fire, and he's just going to have a 1. But he's going to have a -1 because he's disordered. Let's see, where's that other? Where's this? Yeah. So he's at 0. 21 is no effect. And so now we don't have hand-to-hand with cold steel. We don't have anybody moving, so they stay disordered. Remove the assault marker. And now I've got to place another green disc because they're disordered. So now you know what the green disc mean. I'm gonna have to write it down. Okay, so now we go to the next assault. It's gonna be this unit against this unit, and this has a leader. Okay, so let's see, this is the assault. We've got a skirmisher. This unit is disordered. Put that there. Let's move this leader back here. Okay, just slide him back here. Okay. And the thing is, the leader, Bowles, is not going to add anything. He's got a 0 there. So that's not going to be, that would be if we were assaulting. Let's see. He doesn't have any fire strength modifier. His combat value modifier wouldn't be used unless we had hand-to-hand. So, okay. Morale bonus, though, he does get to add a 2. All right. So, we're not going to have an empty target hex, retreat from combat, or advance in the empty target hex. We go right to attacker morale check. All right, so attacker has morale of 40. I rolled a 27, so they're going to be disordered. And guess what? I don't have any more there either. So these designers and game companies, they don't probably watch my videos. They don't want to hear me saying negative stuff about their games. But I don't care. I'm the one paying for the game. I'm supporting their next game. All right, so they're disordered. Okay, so now we have the British. Okay, they got a morale of 33, but +2. That's +2 to the die roll. Oh, let's check if they've got any modifiers. I don't think they're going to. Oh, they are disordered though. So that's -5. And they don't have a skirmisher. What happened to their skirmisher? Alright, so that's going to be -5. Okay. So -5 +2 is going to be a -3 to the die. I rolled a 29. They're going to put them in shaken, so they're going to be reeling. So they're going to have to fall back. Okay. All right, so they fall back to there. And they're shaken. Okay. And now this unit here that is disordered is going to be moving forward. As they move forward, this unit here can fire on them. A skirmisher. So we got skirmisher versus skirmisher there, so that takes care of that, but they are in column. So that's going to be a +1. So the strength is going to be 1. I rolled a 13. That's no effect. Okay. So they're going to be actually able to move in and possibly attack the same unit, or they could attack the one that just fired on them. And that would be in their flank because they're turned facing this way. So wait a minute, I gotta check to see, maybe that skirmisher wouldn't have been able to fire on them. I don't think he would have been, because he's in line. So no, he wouldn't have been able to fire on them. They're outside of the fire. So that shouldn't have. I shouldn't have rolled for a fire here. His range is here, because they're off over here. They're not turned the other way. So yeah, we want to come in there and attack. So we're going to come in here and turn like that. All right. So they still got to roll. So basically we're starting back to the top of the assault procedure. And of course we're not going to have an empty target, retreat, or advance. So we just go straight to attacker morale check. They have a morale of 40, but they are disordered, so that's -5. And that's the other thing. I put these discs out. Now I got to go and look at another one of these, find another disorder counter so that I know what to subtract and so forth. Okay, that's another issue, because my stuff is not going to have all those numbers on it. 27, he failed. So that means he's going to have to retreat, because he's going to be now shaken. So now we go to yellow. And he falls back, and as he falls back, he's fired on by this unit. Just have the skirmisher there though. So again, it's a +1. So it's on the 1 column. Rolled a 30, that's not enough. Okay. All right, so that takes care of the assaults. And so they weren't very successful. And the reason is you got to soften these units up. You've got to get their morale to, at least disordered, hopefully shaken, and then assault. Try to get rid of their skirmishers, and bring in some artillery and pound away at them, and get some skirmishers out there to fight their skirmishers. So that's just a little bit of advice about how not to do your assaults, which is just send them in there. We softened them up there a little bit, but now you got to bring in some other units, because if you look across here, the French disordered, shaken, disordered, disordered. They're kind of in trouble there. Same thing across here, a lot of disordered in here. But at the same time, if we take a look at the British right here, look what we got. Disordered, shaken, 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 shaken. So they're ready to crumble over here. But the cavalry over here is disordered, disordered, disordered. There's just, okay, we've got 2. Okay, right here. 2 regiments here that are ready to do something. Okay. And disordered over there. Can't see those yet, but they're over there. Okay. And of course, Wellesley is still trying to bring in some of his units here. He's got Heal that's trying to get into the fight over here to try to strengthen up the British left. Okay. And then you have some couple more brigades trying to get in there. Let's see, what do we got here? This is who is this? Who is that? Crawford. And then over here we've got, who do we got here? Nightingale. Okay. And Huneau just doesn't have his troops, he's too spread out. I've got him too spread out trying to attack the whole stinking British line, I really think you're better off trying to attack a flank, cause some diversion, keep your opponent from moving units over to where you're actually going to attack. Yeah, that's where we're at right there. And let's see, sequence of play. Okay, so that's going to end the French player turn. And I'll have to go back, because it's been so long, I'll have to go back to look to see if the British have already had their move. They've already had their turn. I don't remember who went first here. From the dice over here, I think it was the French that went first. So maybe we still have the British turn to go at the 11:20 turn. That's what this is. So I kind of just jumped in here, and sorry about the air conditioner, but it's hot here in Texas. So you just have to, I guess, listen to it. I'm not going to be sitting here sweating to death. So, but yeah, you can tell that I'm not too happy about the counter density, or the amount of counters that they provide for information. That's a sore spot with me if you haven't figured that out. But like I said, it's not just this game. It's like almost every game. And I've heard the excuses, but with the amount of money that I'm paying, I don't want to hear excuses. Okay, when I'm paying $100 or more for a game, okay, a game made out of paper, okay, and if it's because you're saying it's because you're sending this over to China, well, quit sending your stuff over to China and find somebody in the United States that can do it. China's not the only one that can make this stuff. And if they are, then we need some people here in the United States to make stuff instead of buying that shit from China. Tired of looking at stuff and seeing it's all China, China, China. I don't want to buy their shit. I want American-made stuff. So quit sending this stuff over there. Don't tell me that, oh, we can't make it here in the United States. That's a bunch of bullshit. I don't want to hear that. So, but I want counters that I can put on my units when they're disordered, shaken, whatever. And I got all these counters. Like I said, I got all these counters. And we look over here, we got all these counters over here. Look at this. And most of these I'm not ever going to use. I'm not ever going to use them. Like this right in front, left in front. I'm not using that. Some of this other stuff. I might use these fatigue. I might start incorporating that at some point. But a lot of this other stuff, I'm not incorporating. Open column. I don't know. It's just taking up space. But I paid for it. I paid for all of these counters. But I'm not going to be using them because I'm not playing that advanced game. I'd like to know how many people are playing it. How many people are into that? You know, I bet it's a very few. And yet everybody had to pay for it. You know, everybody has to have it. That's why the game's like as expensive as it is. You try to buy it now, it's like $150. You know, I got mine cheaper because I jumped onto the Game Found sale or support. But, you know, this is not the only game company that does this. I'm just, you know, they're the ones catching heck because I'm playing this and I've run out of counters. And now I've got to write this down that, okay, these green little discs that I have on the board, I got to write this down so that when I come back to play, I know what the heck's going on. You know, I'm going to look at that and I'm going to say, what are these green discs doing here? What are they? And I got to write it down because there's nothing on the green disc. Why? Because they didn't come with the game. But why do I have them? Because there's not enough of those stinking counters in the game. You don't like the RAM? Don't watch the videos. You know, if you're one of those that's always going to be happy no matter what, and you're not going to really complain about, hey, you know, am I getting my money's worth here? I'm beginning to wonder. You know, I don't buy decision games because of certain things. I might get to where, hey, I don't want to buy any of this. You know, if I keep getting games that I don't have enough, you know, now, you know, well, they're going to say, well, you get the next one, you can use the counters in this one. I don't want to do that. I want to steal counters from one game, and I've had to do it. Great Battles of History. You know, you got to go steal counters from one game to be able to play another game. And then what's up with that? That's ridiculous. You know? That's like Kevin Zucker saying, well, he's not going to make cards anymore. So he just puts these inserts in there, you know. But, you know, if you didn't buy the game that the cards came with, now you got to buy the cards separate. You know, well, just do that from the start. And I know that was just a change, but I don't know what the thinking is sometimes. They haven't thought things out. One thing, Zucker's always got all of these corrections. You know, he spends a year to put out a game, but yet there's all these corrections. Like, did your guys not play test the game enough? You know, I've already talked about some of this stuff. Okay, I'm not a game designer, but if you're going to spend a year on something, you better have some play testers. The thing is, he uses the same people over and over and over. And guess what? You're going to get the same stinking results. You're going to get mistakes over and over and over because you got the same people playing the game. You need some different people that have different views and ideas, and they do different things with the units on the board. And then all of a sudden you find out, hey, I need this, or I need to change this, this, and this. Well, I tell you, there's a big problem with the Kevin Zucker Library of Napoleonic Battles. And that has to do with the night movement. I made a whole video just on that. And I even had a discussion with him. Not over the phone or anything, but texting, you know. Typing in back and forth. Okay. And tried to explain to him, and he, you know, his solution was just, well, you know, you can, you know, it's your house, so you can have your own house rule. But yet, okay, every game that he puts out, that flaw is there. You can't, the night movement isn't historic. And I tried to tell him that, hey, Napoleon, you can't make the same movements Napoleon did. Oh, well, you're not Napoleon, is what he told me. Yeah, I'm not Napoleon, but I ought to be able to move on the map at night the same length that Napoleon did. You know, just telling me I'm not Napoleon, you know, that's not a good enough answer. Just not want to admit that you made a huge mistake is what it is. Your ego's too big. And I've bought his games, and guess what? I'm selling them. You know, I bought a bunch of them, and when I found that flaw and I talked to him about it, I sold them all. Now I got to where I bought some back. Guess what? I'm selling them all again. Because I can't just wrap my head around playing the game when it can't be historic. You cannot do what Napoleon did, or anybody else that moves at night. And Napoleon moved at night a lot. So any part of the game, campaign say, where you're having to move at night, you can't do what they did historically. I could do a whole video over that again. I've already done it. You know, and I don't care what Kevin Zucker thinks about my comments, because I'm not going to be buying his games. But I can say why I'm not buying his games. It's a free country. If he wants to say stuff about what I'm saying, that's fine too. I'm not going to care. You know, but you at least have to acknowledge that, hey, there's an error. There's a big flaw. You didn't think something through. And he's supposed to be the big expert. And it didn't take me long to figure that out. You playing La Patrie in Danger, however you pronounce it, you can't not do what Napoleon did. And you can't just tell me, oh, well, you're not Napoleon. Well, all it is moving units at night on the map. They can't get where they need to go. And we went over all kinds of different things about, well, did you get a factor this and this and this. Your game is flawed, and you didn't want to admit it and have to go back and fix it. So you just keep printing these games out, and they still have the big flaw. But if you don't ever have any night movement, hey, it ain't a problem. And a lot of the games don't have night movement. Some of them do. If you have the campaign, you do the campaign. You know, so. And what does that all come down to? Playtesting. It uses the same people over and over and over. And if you do that, you keep getting all the mistakes. And his games have huge. You pay over $100, almost $100 for those games. They're beautiful. But then there's all these corrections that have to be made. You know? Why? Somebody didn't proofread enough or do enough proofreading and also gameplay. You know, you got the same people doing the same thing over and over and over. You're going to get the same result. You got to get somebody else in there. If you have a bunch of errors and stuff, you need to cut some people and say, hey, you're not good enough. I need to get somebody that is going to try different things, that has thinks outside the box. You know, I've already talked about Talavera. That game is flawed because you got too many points for Talavera itself. You know, it's like 10 points, victory points. Why would anybody go up there and attack the British? Go down there and attack the Spanish and gain those 10 points. But they expect us to shut out this 80, 90, $100, you know, when they got flaws and they don't give you enough counters to play the game. And if we as gamers don't complain, they're not going to change. If you're going to tell them, hey, I ain't buying the game because I can't play it, then maybe they'll give you more counters. They'll probably charge you more, but maybe at least then you get some more counters. So, you know, just frustrating. You set this thing up, spend hours on it. I've spent hours and hours and hours playing. And then you run into where, oh, now I don't have enough counters. You know how that makes you feel? You want to just grab the thing and, you know, crumble it all up and throw it in the trash. But then you're like, well, I spent, you know, $100 on it, so I can't do that. Well, I can sell it off to somebody else, you know. I can surely do that, like I did Midway Solitaire by Decision Games. I don't know how anybody plays any of those games. And the D-Day series at Omaha and all that, they got all kinds of mistakes. You know, the Iwo Jima, I bought that thing and looked at the map and everything, and they screwed that up. And I got rid of that as soon as I could. The only one I have is the Tarawa, and that's the way it's pronounced. Tarawa. It's not Tarawa, it's Tarawa. If you watch any videos, historical videos, and you listen to the guys talk about the island, that's what they say. They say Tarawa. Tarawa, not Tarawa, but Tarawa. So I have that one. But the Omaha, I've got that on. I played on computer, but it's just frustrating to spend money on this stuff, and this is what you get. Beautiful, it's beautiful. Counters look nice and everything, but then when you go to play it, what happens? Well, you don't have enough counters. So now you look out there and you got two green discs, and you're like, well, what? I can't remember. What were those? Or I got to write it down somewhere, And then I got to remember it. So enough complaining, I guess. So this is Lee with 82 Game and 12, and like I said, I don't get paid for none of this. I don't ask you to buy me no stinking coffee, or I don't ask you to subscribe. I don't ask you to do anything. I don't even care if you watch the video. I try to get people, and I've asked for comments. I don't get those. I don't care if you like it or you dislike it. I don't care. I do this really. I do it, because I love gaming, and I try to help guys out that want to see the game played. That's all I'm here for. I'm never going to ask you to subscribe. I'm never going to ask you to like. I'm never going to ask you to buy me a cup of coffee like I don't some of these others, what is it? Fund me, Well, go get a job, okay? Go get a job. Quit asking people to it's like one of those people hanging out at the corner of a stop sign or a corner of the road or something, and they got the sign, buy me a cup of coffee, or hey, I need work, but they don't want work, they just want your money. They're going to sit there and just thumb and ask for your money, okay? I ain't buying nobody some cup of coffee. I'll watch your video maybe, but that don't mean I'm going to like and subscribe. I hardly ever subscribe or like. And I don't care about any of that. I'm not paying money to watch your stuff. Patreon or whatever that other stuff is. I'm not doing that. I'm not asking anybody to ever do that. That's not what I'm here for. I ain't here to make money off of people watching my videos. I do the videos because I like doing them, and the fact is I try to help people out there that want to see the game played, because that is pretty rare. You look on YouTube and try to find games played. Yeah, there's some out there, and I appreciate those people because I watch their videos, And those are probably the people that I subscribe to. If I subscribe to anybody, it's the people that are doing actually playthroughs, because there's not that many out there. That's why I do them, So, I'm trying to help people that want to know really how to play the game. And I may do things wrong, and you can point them out. That's where the comments come in. You say, hey, what about this? And then I take a look. Oh, I correct it. And then that helps everybody that watches, So I do like this game. I think the mechanics are really great. One thing that is superb, okay, better than any other Napoleonic game, is the skirmishers. Okay, the way the skirmishers are handled. I like the way the chargers are handled. Fire combat, the close combat makes sense. It all makes sense. The movement, the command structure, all of that makes sense. The designer has done an excellent job there. Where they have fallen is not enough information counters. And all I can say is that came with them trying to have 3 different rule sets instead of just thinking with one basic rule set, okay, and not have, if you want an advanced rule set, print that separate. And let people buy that separate and get the counters separate and all of that. Because I'm stuck with all these counters that I would just rather throw in the trash, I'll just put them in some container and just throw them in the box, because I'm never going to use them. I'm not playing that advanced game. I looked at it. I don't want to mess with that. Somebody might want that, the miniature style look at it. I don't. And I wish I didn't have it. I wish I didn't have to pay for it. But that's my complaint. But, you know, I praise the game for where it needs to be praised, but then I'm going to tear it down where it needs to be tore down. And the counter issue is major, in my opinion. Because how can I play the game if I don't have the counters that I need to place on the units? Just look out there. What does those green mean? I know. I got to write it down, though, because I don't do that for every game. You know, I could use these blocks, but I use these blocks for other stuff. If you watch any of my videos, you know what I use the blocks for. So I guess I've complained enough about this, but I did throw in some praise. So if they're watching, then maybe they can smile about that, but they need to be frowning about the fact that the customer, okay, that paid a lot of money is unhappy because he can't play the game. Not without having to dig around and find other stuff to use. And like I said, it's not just Lock and Load that has done this, but GMT, it's even Kevin Zucker and his operational studies group. It's basically every game company out there. They screw you over with not giving you enough counters, information counters. It's a shortcut, okay? They don't care that you don't have enough counters. All they care is they got the money for the game. Honestly, because if they did care, they would give you the counters you need to play the entire game. So apparently, they did not have anybody play this game completely all the way out, because they would have ran out of counters and they would have told the designer, hey, you don't have enough counters in here. We need more shaken, disordered, broken, routed counters. And get rid of that other shit that hardly anybody's going to use. I want to know who's using that. Who's playing that brigade game? You know? Maybe some college professors out there doing it. You know, but the ordinary gamer, they ain't messing with that. You know, I can't wrap my head around that. And I've read a lot of history books, and a lot of history books over the Peninsula War. Okay, you can tell I got book after book that I show. I got 3 books sitting right there. Okay, and that's not counting all the other books I got on shelves and shelves here and shelves there and drawers and everything else. You know, so I'm not some novice. Okay, I have a history degree. I've taught history at the high school level, not the college level, but the high school level. And I've read book after book after book, and I've studied, and I've played game after game after game. And so I understand, and this makes sense, the way that they've done the skirmishers and just all of it. The whole mechanics is sound, except for the fact you don't have enough counters to play the game. So that tells me they did not play this game all the way out. They played for a number of turns and then said, okay, it's all good. Nope, you didn't. Because if you did, you would have had the same issue I have. You would have been looking around and saying, I don't have enough disorder counters. You need to give the customers more disorder counters. Nah, we can't do that. That means we'd have to eliminate the brigade system. All these excuses. No, you wouldn't. You just put the brigade system in a module. Okay, I have the assault on the Western Ridge. I have that right here. Okay, and I paid for that. Did it come with any counters? No. Came with this map. Okay, this little map here. But they could have just separated that complicated system. You want to keep the two, the simple, the basic, and then the battalion? Fine. Get rid of that brigade. And the other thing they're adding now, hey, the operational, forget that. You're trying to do too much. You can't do operational and tactical and they match up. They don't work. Okay? I've looked at it. It's not gonna match up. The operational game, you can't match it up to the map. Your map is gonna have to be so much bigger. You're gonna have to cover so much more territory. Because guess what? The fight might not end in Wellington or Noro. It might not end there or start there. It might start somewhere else. You can't combine. It doesn't work. And yet, yeah, they're going to do it, and they're going to put it in a box, and you're going to have to pay for it. And guess what? You're not going to play it because it's not going to work. It's flawed. And I think it's great that they're covering a battle that has not been covered, okay, enough. Even Kevin Zucker back in his SPI days, he did this Fuentes de Oro. You know, I've got it. It was a magazine game, and you know, but it doesn't work operational. In an operational scale, it doesn't work. It has to be tactical because it was a tactical battle. It wasn't an operational battle. It was a tactical battle. Operation to get there. You know, to get in position, and then it's a tactical. Well, you can't combine those two into one game. You can have the operational or you can have the tactical, but you can't have both. It doesn't work. So, but enough of that. Then I've got to look to see it because it's been so long. I don't remember if the British have already had their turn. I got to look back at those short videos and find out. So this video is going to stop, and so I'm signing out here.